My name is Claire Whitaker. I'm 35 years old. And I didn't realize my relationship was already over until my fiancé said, into a microphone, that he was only marrying me because he was tired of waiting for someone better. Not in a fight, not in private, not even angrily. He said it casually, like a truth he'd already made peace with. We'd been together 3 years, engaged for 8 months, wedding planned for next month. I thought we were solid. I thought love was what we were doing. I was wrong about a lot of things. The bridal shower was his idea. Big venue, upscale. About 60 guests, full catering, champagne towers, custom signage. He'd insisted it be done right, said it mattered that his friends and family saw we were serious, that we were a unit. I wasn't supposed to be there. Grooms don't attend bridal showers. But 3 weeks earlier, his mother, Margaret, had pulled me aside and asked for help. She wanted to surprise her son with a video montage during the shower. Messages from family, old photos, congratulations. She said the venue's AV system was complicated. I work in IT, so on Saturday afternoon, I showed up early, around 1:00 p.m., an hour before guests arrived. I set up the projector, tested the speakers, checked the wireless microphones. 4 mics, all synced to the main sound system. Everything worked perfectly. That was the problem. By 1:40, I finished and slipped into the back office to wait. The plan was simple. I'd appear at the end of the video, surprise him, make it a moment he'd never forget. At 2:00, the party started. Laughter, music, glasses clinking. At 3:45, I heard the mic screech with feedback, someone laughing. Then his voice. Is this thing on? More laughter. I smiled. Speeches were starting. I moved closer to the door. I know my mom wants me to say something about love and our future. His voice sounded loose, relaxed, champagne soft. But real talk for a second. Something in my chest tightened. Can I be honest with you guys? Someone said something I couldn't hear. Laughter. No, seriously. Then, I'm only marrying her because I'm tired of waiting for someone better. The room inside me went silent. I stood frozen, my hand gripping the doorknob so hard my fingers hurt. She's great, he continued. She's stable, she has a good job, she'll be a good mom, probably. Probably. But she's not, she's not who I imagined marrying when I was younger. The laughter that followed was thin, uncomfortable. I'm 35. Most of my friends are married. My ex is married. My mom keeps asking about grandkids. I felt my heartbeat in my throat. She proposed at the right time. He laughed. That's basically it. Then brightly. So let's drink to settling. To marriages that are good enough. That's when I opened the door and walked out. Every face turned toward me. His smile collapsed. Claire? His voice went small, still amplified. What are you doing here? Helping your mom with the tech, I said calmly. I've been here since before the party started. I met his eyes. I heard everything. The mic slipped from his hand. Feedback screamed. I can explain. Don't. I pulled out my phone. You said you're tired of waiting. Perfect. I canceled the ring insurance first. Then the caterer, then the tux rental. Each call on speaker, each confirmation immediate. He cried, reached for me. I stepped back. You weren't private about the truth, I said, so I won't be private about the consequences. Behind me, chairs scraped. I turned toward the exit, and that's when I realized I wasn't walking out alone. The air outside the venue felt colder than it should have been for early fall. It hit my face like a slap, sharp, clean, unforgiving. I walked fast at first, not because I was trying to escape him, but because if I slowed down, I knew I would crumble. My body was running on something primal, survival disguised as composure. The kind of calm you get when your mind refuses to accept what just happened, so it turns you into a machine until you're somewhere safe enough to feel. Behind me, the doors swung open. Footsteps, not one pair. Several. For a split second, my stomach twisted. I imagined him chasing me, grabbing my wrist, begging, yelling, turning the whole thing into the kind of dramatic scene people could later romanticize. But it wasn't him. It was Margaret, his mother, moving with a kind of stunned, furious purpose. Beside her, his younger sister Olivia, face tight, eyes bright with tears she refused to let fall. And then, like a shadow, I hadn't expected to follow me into this moment. Sophie, his best friend since childhood. The woman who'd stood beside me during dress fittings, who'd texted me venue ideas, who'd once told me, he's lucky you even looked his way. She didn't say anything at first. She just stepped up beside me, matching my pace, like she was making a decision with her feet before her mind had even fully caught up. I stopped at the edge of the parking lot, my key fob clenched in my palm. I turned around slowly, like turning too fast might crack whatever thin glass I'd built around my emotions. Margaret was the first one to speak. Her voice was trembling, but not with weakness, with rage. "Claire," she said, like the name was an apology. "Honey, I am so sorry." I stared at her. I wanted to say, "It's not your fault." But the truth was, I didn't know what was whose fault yet. I didn't know if this was one cruel moment or a pattern everyone had been quietly holding around me like a secret. Olivia's voice cut in, sharp and bitter. "He said that, into a mic, like it was nothing." She looked like she wanted to throw up. Sophie swallowed hard, finally speaking. I didn't think he'd ever say it out loud." That sentence landed like a second betrayal. I blinked. "What do you mean? You didn't think he'd say it out loud?" Sophie's eyes flicked away. Her hands were shaking. Margaret snapped her head towards Sophie. "Sophie." Sophie flinched like a child caught doing something wrong. Margaret turned back to me, and the fury in her face changed shape, morphed into something older, heavier. The look of a woman realizing she had raised a son who could be cruel in a way she didn't want to name. "Not here," Margaret said quietly. "Please, come home with me. Let's not do this in a parking lot." I should have gone to my own place. I had my own place, thank God. I'd never moved in with him, no matter how many times he'd hinted that it was the next step. But right then, I didn't want silence. I didn't want an empty apartment where every corner would echo his voice. So I nodded. We drove in a strange little convoy. Margaret in front, me behind her, Olivia trailing, Sophie following, like she was afraid to be alone with her thoughts. Nobody played music. Nobody made small talk. All I could hear was that sentence repeating in my skull like a looped recording. "I'm only marrying her because I'm tired of waiting for someone better." Better. As if I was a substitute product you grabbed when the one you wanted was out of stock. Margaret's house was warm when we arrived. Soft porch light, tidy flower beds, the kind of home that always smelled faintly like laundry detergent and lemon cleaner. Normal. Too normal for what had just happened. She guided me inside like I was someone in shock, which I was, but she didn't pity me. She didn't hover. She didn't treat me like glass. She treated me like family, and somehow that hurt more. Because for months I'd been imagining becoming part of this family permanently. Now I was here in their house, not as the future daughter-in-law, but as the woman their son had humiliated in front of 60 people. Margaret went straight to the kitchen. "I'm making dinner," she said. "I don't care if you eat 2 bites. You need something in you." Olivia perched on a bar stool, arms folded, staring at the countertop like it had personally offended her. Sophie lingered near the doorway, restless, like she was deciding whether she deserved to stay. I sat at the table, hands clasped so tightly my knuckles were pale. Margaret moved around the kitchen with practiced motions, pulling out ingredients, boiling water, layering sauce and cheese like she'd done it 1,000 times. Homemade lasagna. Comfort food. A mother's apology in edible form. "I raised him better than that," she said suddenly, voice rough. Nobody answered right away. "Because what do you say to that?" I finally swallowed. "It's not your fault." Margaret shook her head, eyes glistening. "Don't you dare take that burden, Claire. He's my son. That's on me." Olivia's laugh came out sharp, humorless. "Mom, you didn't raise him to be cruel. You raised him to be charming. That's different." Margaret froze for a second like Olivia had hit a nerve. Sophie flinched again. The room tightened. I felt something cold slide through me. Because Olivia didn't sound surprised. She sounded sick of it. Like this wasn't the first time he'd disappointed them. Margaret set down the spoon with a soft clink. Olivia turned to me, eyes burning. "You know what makes me the angriest?" she said. "It's not that he thinks it. It's that he let you plan a wedding, let you pick a dress, let you love him publicly, while he privately treated you like a placeholder." My throat tightened. The word, placeholder, felt so painfully accurate I could barely breathe. Margaret sat down across from me, hands trembling. "I knew something was off," she admitted quietly. "The last few months, he's been detached, but I thought it was stress. Wedding pressure, work." She looked at me with helpless frustration. "I didn't know it was this." Olivia scoffed. "He's been saying it for months." Silence. My head snapped toward her. "What?" Olivia's jaw clenched. Margaret's face went white. "Olivia," Margaret warned again, but softer this time, like she already knew she'd lost control of what was about to come out. Olivia looked straight at me. "No more protecting him," she said. "You deserve the truth." My stomach dropped so hard it felt like falling. "What has he been saying?" I asked, my voice too calm, too controlled. Olivia hesitated only once, like she was choosing the least cruel version of cruelty. "He's been calling you his backup plan," she said. The room blurred at the edges. I stared at her, waiting for her to laugh and say she didn't mean it. But she didn't. He said you were perfect wife material, Olivia continued, voice shaking with disgust. Smart, stable, loyal. The kind of woman you marry when you're done chasing excitement. Each word scraped my skin like sandpaper. Margaret covered her mouth. Sophie squeezed her eyes shut. And that was when I knew. Sophie knew too. I turned towards Sophie slowly. You knew, I whispered. Sophie's eyes filled immediately. Claire. She shook her head, voice breaking. I thought it was fear. Cold feet. I thought he was just talking himself into it. Talking himself into it, I repeated, my voice hollow. Olivia's tone sharpened. No, he wasn't scared. He was comfortable. There's a difference. Margaret's voice cracked. How long? She asked Olivia, like she didn't want the answer but needed it anyway. Olivia stared at the table. Since right after he proposed, she said. He started saying it like a joke at first, like, well, I guess I'm finally being practical, and then it wasn't a joke anymore. I felt sick. 8 months of engagement, 8 months of planning and smiling and tasting cakes and signing contracts and imagining a future, while he'd been narrating me as a compromise. I pushed my chair back slightly, the legs scraping the floor. My hands were shaking now. I couldn't stop it. Margaret stood and came around the table, kneeling beside me like she was afraid I might disappear. Claire, she said, voice thick, I am so sorry. I swallowed hard. No, I whispered. Don't apologize for him. He did this. And that was the first time I said it out loud. Not the mic did this. Not the champagne did this. Not the moment did this. He did this. Margaret's eyes squeezed shut. Olivia stared at the wall like she wanted to punch through it. Sophie's shoulders shook with silent sobs, and she whispered something I almost didn't hear. You didn't deserve that. I nodded once, slow. Because if I didn't anchor myself to that sentence, I felt like I might drown. Dinner sat on the table untouched for a while. Margaret eventually served it anyway, because mothers do that when they don't know how else to keep someone alive. I ate 2 bites, chewed mechanically, swallowed. It tasted like nothing. After dinner, Margaret made up the guest room without asking if I wanted it, as if making me a bed was the only way she could fix something unfixable. Olivia hugged me before she left, squeezing hard. If he comes near you, call me, she said. I mean it. Sophie lingered in the doorway. Her eyes were red. Her voice was small. Claire, I texted him. I told him he ruined his own life. I looked at her. I didn't know what to do with Sophie yet. She was loyal to him by history, loyal to me by conscience. But she had still stayed silent while I built a future on a foundation she suspected was cracked. So I just nodded. I'm going to go, Sophie whispered. But I'm here if you need anything. When everyone finally left, Margaret hugged me goodnight. Long, tight. A mother holding the pieces her son shattered. I went into the guest room and closed the door. The bed was made neatly. Fresh sheets, a folded towel, a glass of water on the nightstand. It was too kind. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at my hands. I waited for the tears. They didn't come yet. Instead, my phone buzzed. A message. From him. Claire, please call me. We need to talk. I stared at the screen. The second message came almost immediately. I was nervous. I was drunk. I didn't mean it. Then another. Everyone is mad at me. My mom left. This is humiliating. Humiliating. Even now, he was still centering himself. I felt something inside me harden. Quietly. Cleanly. I didn't respond. I didn't argue. I just opened my settings and blocked his number. The silence afterward wasn't peace, but it was the first honest thing I'd had all day. And in the dark guest room, staring at a ceiling I didn't recognize, one thought landed with terrifying clarity. He didn't accidentally reveal the truth. He accidentally revealed it to me. I woke up to silence that felt artificial. The kind of quiet that only exists in other people's houses, where none of your own sounds have accumulated yet. No habits, no echoes of shared routines, just borrowed air. For a split second, I forgot. Then my phone lit up. 17 missed calls. All unknown numbers. My stomach sank. He was using other people's phones. I stared at the screen until it dimmed, then slowly sat up in bed, every muscle aching, like I'd been carrying something heavy all night without realizing it. Downstairs, Margaret was already awake. The smell of coffee drifted up the hallway. She didn't ask questions when she saw my face. She just poured me a mug and set a plate of pancakes in front of me like this was a normal Sunday morning. You can stay here as long as you need, she said gently. Don't rush anything. Don't let anyone rush you. I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. By noon, Olivia came back over. The family group chat was imploding. Aunt Diane thinks the wedding is still on, Olivia said flatly, scrolling. Grandma wants to know why you left early. He's not answering anyone. What are you telling them? I asked. Olivia didn't even hesitate. The truth, she said, that he publicly admitted he was settling for you, and you had the self-respect to walk away. I exhaled slowly. And how's that going over? She grimaced. About half the family agrees. The other half thinks you should have handled it privately, that you overreacted. I laughed once, short, humorless. Overreacted to being called a consolation prize? Olivia snorted. Exactly what I said. That afternoon, Sophie came by with a 6-pack of my favorite beer. She sat beside me on the back porch, the autumn air cool and sharp. I need to be honest, she said quietly, staring out at the yard. I waited. He told me months ago, after a girls' night, said you were perfect on paper, that he'd be stupid not to marry you, but he wished there was more spark. My jaw tightened. And you thought that was normal? I thought it was fear, she said, voice breaking. I thought once you were married, once he committed, he'd realize what he had. But he already had, I said. She nodded, tears spilling over. I know that now. I didn't comfort her. I didn't yell either. Some apologies come too late to be useful. Monday morning, I went back to work and failed spectacularly at pretending to be functional. My coworker Evan took one look at me and said, "What happened?" I told him everything. He listened, stunned. "Claire," he said finally, "you didn't just dodge a bullet, you dodged a whole firing squad." I spent my lunch break canceling what was left of the wedding. Venue, photographer, florist. I lost about $8,000. He'd contributed maybe $2,000. I didn't fight him for it. Money felt small compared to what I almost lost. By Wednesday, his friends started reaching out, not to apologize, to defend him. One message read, "You humiliated him. That was cruel." I replied once, "He humiliated himself. I just stopped pretending I didn't hear it." Another said, "Everyone says stupid things when they're nervous." I answered, "He said it into a microphone, surrounded by his closest people. That wasn't a slip. That was his truth." They stopped messaging after that. On Thursday, he showed up at my office. Security called my desk. "There's a man here asking for you." I didn't even ask who. "No," I said, "please escort him out." They did. He waited in the parking lot. I left through a side exit. That night, an email arrived. Long, polished, desperate. He blamed champagne, nerves, fear. He said he loved me. He offered therapy, counseling, anything. 3 years has to count for something. I read it twice. Then I replied, "You weren't drunk. You were honest. You didn't mean for me to hear it. That's not the same as not meaning it. I'm not throwing away our future. You threw it away when you decided I was good enough because nothing better showed up. Please don't contact me again." He didn't respond. And for the first time since the bridal shower, I slept. 6 weeks later, the world feels quieter. Not empty. Just uncluttered. The kind of quiet that comes after something loud and destructive tears through your life and leaves nothing standing except what was real enough to survive. The first 2 weeks were the hardest. That was when the shock wore off and the grief showed up, late, uninvited, and persistent. I cried in grocery store aisles. I teared up at songs I'd loved before him and now couldn't place in time without his shadow attached. But somewhere between week 3 and 4, something shifted. The grief stopped being sharp. It became informative. I started noticing how much energy I'd been spending trying to be chosen. Not loved, chosen. Trying to be exciting enough, calm enough, easy enough, impressive without being intimidating, supportive without being boring. I realized I'd been performing a version of myself that was just acceptable, not because he demanded it outright, but because I sensed, somewhere deep down, that enthusiasm had never been mutual. Margaret still calls me every Sunday. She doesn't talk about him unless I bring him up. She asks about my work, about my sleep, about whether I've eaten anything green that week. Once she said quietly, "You deserve better than my son." And instead of flinching, I believed her. Olivia and I get coffee sometimes. She tells me the family's still split. Half of them think I was too harsh. The other half thinks I saved myself. I know which side I'm on. Sophie and I are different now. Not closer, not distant. Just honest. She apologized again once. I told her she didn't need to. We both know silence is a choice, even when it comes from fear. The wedding would have been this weekend, October 14th. Instead of getting married, I'm going hiking with Evan and a few coworkers. We're making a weekend of it. Fresh air. No reception schedule. No vows written for someone who never wanted to meet me where I stood. Someone at work asked if I regretted how I handled it. The public confrontation, the cancellations, walking out with his family watching. I thought about it. Really thought. "No," I said. He made his truth public. I just made sure it had consequences. I heard through Sophie that he moved back in with his parents, that his friends are divided on whether I was cruel or whether he deserved it, that he tells different versions of the story depending on the audience. I don't care. His narrative isn't my responsibility anymore. I've been on a couple dates. Nothing serious. Just enough to remember what it feels like to be with someone who's excited to be there, who doesn't make you feel like a fallback option. The bridal shower was supposed to celebrate our future. Instead, it ended the lie. And honestly, I'm grateful. Grateful for the faulty mic. Grateful I found out before the wedding. Grateful I walked away instead of trying to convince someone I was worth wanting. Because I am, just not by someone who's settling. Better alone than sufficient.